Minecraft 1.21.4 is the Garden Awakens Drop, featuring a new biome with a new creepy mob, several new block families including a new wood set and a new type of moss, among many other changes and fixes. My name is Slime and this is the most comprehensive guide to all the changes around. Let's get into it. The new biome is the Pale Garden, which is a biome variation of the Dark Forest biome, with pale oak trees instead of dark oak trees. Pale moss blocks and carpet generates on the ground, and hanging pale moss generates hanging from the foliage of the pale oaks. A new type of flower called Eyeblossoms can also be found here. The grass in the Pale Garden has a desaturated greyish look, the sky is a smoky grey, and the water is a pale light blue. Any tinted leaves placed in the biome also get a desaturated grey look. There are no animal mobs that spawn naturally in the Pale Garden. The ambient sound for this new biome use a different system than other places. Instead of having biome ambient sounds, the sounds are generated from the blocks in the biome. Eyeblossoms have a situational ambient sound. When placed on pale moss and in open state, they emit a soft, whispering sound. Music does not play in the Pale Garden, and any music that plays when entering the biome will fade out and stop. Pale moss can be bone mealed just like regular moss, and then spawns a pale moss patch covered with pale moss carpets, grass, and tall grass. When you place down a pale moss carpet, it will grow up the blocks next to it on any vertical surfaces, at least up the sides of any adjacent blocks, but also randomly up to 2 blocks tall. Bone mealing the carpet makes it grow 2 blocks up all adjacent blocks. Breaking these tendrils will break all sides at once, and removing the moss carpet will also break them. Removing the block they are attached to also makes them vanish. The correct tool for mining the pale moss blocks and pale moss carpet is the hoe, just like for regular moss. Pale moss carpet can also be crafted like regular moss carpet from 2 pale moss blocks. The pale hanging moss cannot be crafted and does not grow on its own. However, it will grow down 1 block if there's space when bone mealed anywhere in the column. Pale hanging moss breaks instantly when mined, regardless of which tool is used, but you only get the drops when using shears or a silk touch tool. A new type of flowers grow in the Pale Garden called Eyeblossoms, and just like an eye, they can open and close. They open during the night and close during the day, with a particle effect as they transition. This transition happens at random, but once one turns, Eyeblossoms within a 3-block radius have a higher chance of also turning within a few seconds, faster the closer they are. When an Eyeblossom turns from being notified, it plays a quicker sound than if it turns randomly. When picked up, they keep the state that they had, but once planted they once again follow the day and night cycle. If you plant them in a dimension that doesn't have day and night, they stay the way you planted them. You can also plant the Eyeblossom in a flower pot, where it will also open and close, but will not notify nearby Eyeblossoms and also not be notified. Bees that try to pollinate on open Eyeblossoms will get poisoned. You can also tempt bees by holding one, but trying to feed one a flower will poison it. They entirely ignore closed Eyeblossom and cannot be tempted by them. You can craft the open Eyeblossom into orange dye and the closed Eyeblossom into grey dye. They are both also suspicious stew ingredients for blindness from open ones and nausea from closed ones. You can also get Eyeblossoms by bone mealing grass blocks in the Pale Garden biome. Pale oaks are a variant of dark oaks with similar shape and size, but unique wood and leaf blocks. They generate naturally in the Pale Garden with decorations in form of moss. Pale oak leaves with their bottom side exposed have a chance to spawn falling leaf particles. Pale oak leaves can be sheared or silk touched like other leaves. When picked up and placed in a different biome, they retain their grey look and are unaffected by the biome tint. When broken otherwise, they have a chance to drop a pale oak sapling starting at 5% and increasing with fortune. If you don't want to plant it for decoration in a flower pot, you can also plant the sapling for new pale oak trees. This has to be done in a 2x2 area, just like for dark oak saplings. Player-grown pale oaks generate without any decorations like hanging moss or moss on the ground. Pale oak logs can be crafted into the entire wood set of pale oak, including wood, planks, stairs, slabs, fences and fence gates, doors and trapdoors, buttons and pressure plates, signs and hanging signs, and boats with a chest boat variant. The logs and wood can also be stripped using an axe. The pale oak trees also have another unique feature: the creaking heart block. It can be found within some pale oak trees, hidden by pale oak logs on all sides, and cause a creaking mob to be spawned if the player is nearby at night. This happens based on the day-night cycle, not based on the light level like other mobs, and when it turns to day, the creaking will despawn. A creaking activates when a player looks at it, which makes its eyes start shining brighter and causes it to target the player. An activated creaking will not move as long as a player is looking at it, but will move if you turn away. Wearing a pumpkin on your head removes this effect. The creaking then always behaves as if you were not looking. It'll follow and attack players up to 32 blocks away from its creaking heart block. Once that far away, it'll stop. Taking a hit from the creaking is relatively light, up to a couple of hearts of damage on hard mode without any armor. You can attack it, but it is invulnerable. Instead of taking damage, a particle trail appears when it is hit, showing the way to the source creaking heart block. And another particle trail appears from the creaking heart block, moving towards the creaking. The creaking despawns when the creaking heart block it is connected to is mined, with no loot or experience dropped from the mob. They also have a death animation and sound, which plays before they despawn when their creaking heart is mined. Mining the block is most efficiently done with an axe, and it only drops when using a Silk Touch tool. Breaking a creaking heart without Silk Touch gives 1 to 3 of a new item called Resin clumps, which we'll get into more later. You can also get more if you're using a Fortune enchanted tool. The creaking heart also drops XP when mined, 20 to 24 points, regardless of if it's broken with the Silk Touch or not. This only happens for creaking hearts that were placed with the world, not from player-placed ones. The creaking can only spawn when the creaking heart is placed between two correctly aligned pale oak logs. The creaking heart lights up orange when it is correctly placed and is otherwise a dull brown. Creaking hearts can also be used with comparators. They output a signal strength based on how far away the connected creaking is. The value is 0 when there's no creaking, or the creaking is near 32 blocks away, and then increases linearly to 15 when the creaking is right next to the creaking heart. Some special things about the creaking. Creakings cannot enter boats, and once spawned from the creaking heart cannot enter portals either. You also cannot name them with a name tag. Like a spider, the eyes of an activated creaking are visible when the creaking has the invisibility effect. Creakings ignore cactus, berry bush and powder snow damage, and will walk through or over those blocks, and are also naturally fire resistant. The creaking despawns if a player ends up inside its hitbox for a few seconds. A creaking connected to a creaking heart also despawns if it ends up too far away from its heart. There is a creaking spawn egg, which spawns an untethered variant that can go through portals and is not connected to any creaking heart block. Creakings from spawn eggs persist through day and night and also do take damage from regular attacks. They have a single point of health, which is half a heart. All types of villagers except Ravagers are afraid of creakings and will try to avoid them, even though creakings only attack players. Another thing that happens from attacking a creaking is that its creaking heart spreads 2 or 3 resin clumps, which spawn on the sides of pale oak logs that are close and connected to it. This can only happen once every 5 seconds. A player's dog attacking a creaking also causes it to spawn resin clumps, and so does having a player-lit TNT explode near one. Skulk sensors also activate from resin clumps being placed by a creaking heart, with a frequency of 13 for blocks being placed. These resin clumps do not need any special tool to mine and break instantly. Resin clumps can be placed on any full block surface just like a glow lichen, and can also be waterlogged. 3x3 resin clumps can be crafted into a block of resin, which is a storage block that can be crafted back into clumps. This block is also mined instantly and without any specific tools, and it can also be used for crafting a new creaking heart together with pale oak logs. Smelting a resin clump gives a resin brick. This is an armor trim smithing material and can also be crafted 2x2 into resin bricks. Resin bricks are a block family that have slabs, stairs, walls, and chisel variants with the regular recipes, and which can also be crafted in a stone cutter. The right tool for all the resin brick blocks is a pickaxe. You can also find resin clumps in random loot inside Woodland Mansion chests. Another way to obtain some of these blocks is the Wandering Trader. It can now sell pale oak saplings, pale moss blocks, pale hanging moss, open eyeblossoms, and resin clumps. All these new organic blocks can be composted, with the pale oak leaves and saplings as well as the moss carpet and hanging moss giving the lowest possible chance to add a layer at 30%, and a pale moss block and both forms of eyeblossoms giving a 65% chance like a regular moss block and other flowers. In other block and item news, blocks that require support to not pop off have been changed. Any such block is now mineable without a specific tool, although a tool may still break the block faster. This applies to bells, lanterns, soul lanterns, all copper door variants, iron doors, and all pressure plates. In addition, brewing stands can now be broken with any tool, and ender chests now drop obsidian when broken with the wrong tool, instead of dropping nothing. Suspicious stew effect times have been changed. The time has been reduced by 1 second for fire resistance from allium, regeneration from oxide daisy, jump boost from cornflower, wither from wither rose, and poison from lily of the valley. The time has been reduced 2 seconds for weakness from all kinds of tulips, and increased 3 seconds for blindness from azure bluet. Fixes the bundles in this version. The hand animation now plays when throwing out items from a bundle by holding down the button. Dark items now have better contrast against the bundle tooltip background. In gameplay news, you can no longer keep sprinting when doing actions that slow you down and that would not let you start sprinting. This includes sprinting while sneaking or crawling, as well as item-based actions like sprinting while blocking, eating, or using a goat horn. Fall damage is no longer ignored for a couple of seconds when loading into a single-player world or LAN server. Flying through climbable blocks in creative mode no longer slows you down. And using control and pick block in creative mode no longer gives you a new item if you already have that item in the inventory. The base damage of the power enchantment is now back to what it was before it was unintentionally reduced in Minecraft 1.21. The title of written books now once again show up when placed in item frames. And blocks at the very bottom of the world now show up on a map properly. Insta-mining blocks now once again works when standing inside a cobweb. And the trident use statistics now properly increases when throwing a trident. Using a water-breathing potion while underwater now gives you back air in addition to preventing more from being used. Mob preferences for picking up items have changed. Some mobs now have preferred weapon types. Bows for skeleton-type mobs except wither skeletons, crossbows for piglins and pillagers, and tridents for drowned. Any armor item a mob considers picking up is now preferred according to its base armor value, its base armor toughness value, having more enchantments, how undamaged it is, and if it has a custom name. Any main hand item is now preferred according to it being a main hand weapon, having a higher base damage value, having more enchantments, how undamaged it is, and if it has a custom name. The spinning rods of a breeze no longer turn entirely stationary when the breeze is moving. Hitting the tail of an ender dragon now works. When killed, the hitboxes of the dragon's body parts now stick to the dragon through its death animation. The color of a kitten or puppy is now a mix of the color of its parents' colors, the same way a lamb gets its wool color as a mix of its parents. Baby cats and ocelots have been returned to their right size and now once again have their tails attached. Rabbits no longer get stuck on the edges of blocks and hop against that block for all eternity. The trading window now closes if the villager you're trading with leaves the interaction range. Villagers no longer sometimes try to claim beds that are already claimed after breaking and replacing that bed. And upgrading a world with villagers from 1.21.1 or before made those villagers suddenly have a larger detection radius for iron golems, up to 48 blocks instead of their normal 16. When upgrading a world to this version, those villagers will now get the appropriate range again. The same issue also applied to some other creatures in ways that were more subtle, like allays, bees, llamas, pillagers, and wardens. Neutral mobs that get leashed and then unleashed no longer end up unable to walk to a target. Leashed bees no longer enter hives or nests. And interacting with a bee while holding a wither rose now gives the bee the wither effect instead of making it happy. A lace holding an item for a player can no longer be set on fire by that player using a sweeping edge fire aspect sword. In advancement news, the Isn't It Cute, Little Sniffs, and Sheer Brilliance advancements can no longer be gained by unleashing the mobs. The Pale Garden is now required for the Adventuring Time advancement. Killing a Creaking by breaking its Creaking heart block now grants the Monster Hunter advancement and is now also required for the Monsters Hunted advancement. A world generation fix. Cave carvers can now carve through snow, so there's no longer sometimes snow blocks hanging in the air around cave openings. In visual news, you no longer start flickering or turn invisible when flying elytra at high speeds. Chunks on the very edge of the render distance are now properly synchronized and shown. Translucency sorting is no longer broken in certain places of the world, especially after using the F3 and A functions to re-render chunks. When a dirt block turns into grass underneath a snow layer, it now properly gets its snowy side texture. And the nether brick texture now lines up with the regular brick texture. Skulk veins are now correctly mirrored when viewed from behind. And experience orbs no longer bounce too high and then snap back into place. In user interface news, the main menu panorama has been updated to show a Pale Garden biome. The hat layer of other players in multiplayer now appears the same way on the tab list, regardless of how far away that player is. This version brings us support for a new language in the game, Popoloka. A new version of the Unicode font used by the game has been included, which adds support for a new set of glyphs for old computing concepts and games. And this version also comes with stability fixes, including crash fixes and a fix for errors when trying to connect to servers, sometimes showing a wall of text instead of an error message. This version also comes with technical changes in Data Pack version 61 and Resource Pack version 46, including a huge change to allow data-driven item models. If you're also interested in that, keep your eyes on the channel for a separate video. But that's all for this video. If you enjoyed spending a while listening to a piece of citrus fruit tell you about changes in block aim, please consider accurately poking some pixels making up a box-like shape to influence a strange algorithm into helping said piece of citrus fruit achieve world domination. Thank you. And thank you for watching. My name is Sliced Lime, and I'll see you next time.